I told them they probably didn't want me to be doing the review of this radio.
Stick around and we'll get right to it.
So I have lost count on the number of emails that I have gotten from viewers just like you wanting me to review this APRS rig by Tidradio. And I want to be right up front with you guys. When Tidradio reached out to me and asked me to review this particular HT, I told them they probably didn't want me to be doing the review of this radio, because I will be focusing solely on one particular aspect of this radio, and that's going to be the APRS feature. So if you're looking for, is it a clean radio, or how much power does it put out at all the various levels, how to program repeaters into the memory banks, well, this is not your video. However, if you want to know what it does really well and what it doesn't do so well with APRS, well, stick around because you're in the right place. Oh, and one other thing before we get started, if you're expecting me to be using their app, well, I didn't and I won't. I like the fact that a lot of these radios are coming with apps that allow you to program the rigs and update firmware and things like that, but I think the radio needs to stand on its own first. And then if the app adds functions to it, then that's awesome. But I don't think we should be required to use the app just to get the basic functions working on the radio. All right, so this is the Tidradio TD-H9 HT. And one of the things I want to talk about first is actually the manual. This is one of the most well-written, understandable English manuals that I've seen come out of a Chinese factory. Now, it's got some mistakes in it. I have noticed that some of the things in here don't match up with the menus on the radio, but that is probably because they're updating the firmware faster than they're updating the manual. The other thing is, and this would be okay with me, if I could go to their website and just download the current copy of the manual, even if I don't have the very latest one printed out, that would be perfectly acceptable. What isn't acceptable is the fact that I've got to give them an email address before I can download a manual. There should be a PDF link that I just click right there on their website and we call it a day. So, Tidradio, if you're listening, remove that email link. I don't want to be marketed to just so I can download a manual. Now, some of the things I definitely like about the radio is we get USB-C charging right on the base of the battery. I did verify on high output that I was getting roughly 9 watts out of this radio. And I wanted to verify that because this radio, for all the negative things I'm going to say, has one killer feature that makes it worth the money. But before we get to that, let's talk about a few other things and then some bad things about this radio. First of all, it does have weather channels built in, and I really like any HT to have the weather channels built in because we have a significant threat of severe weather on a fairly regular basis, and I'm often out in the RV, and this might be the only weather radio that I have with me. Now, as advertised, we can do APRS type things with this particular radio. More importantly, though, we can program almost all of the APRS stuff right from the front panel of the radio. That is one of the things that I don't like about other Chinese APRS radios on the market. A lot of times you got to have the app in order to get certain things configured. That's getting better, but it's super nice to see it come right out of the box, being able to do it all from the front panel. It does receive APRS packets just fine. It receives APRS objects, sort of, and it will receive APRS messages. Oh, and you can send messages right from the front panel of the radio. Now, that experience is no better than any other APRS HT on the market in that as much as it is frustrating to just type on these limited number of keys right here. So it is doable. It's not the best experience in the world, but I like the fact that we can do it if we want to right from the front panel. Now let's talk about a few of the negatives when it comes to this particular radio. First off, the weather radio that I mentioned a while ago, while I do like it, what is missing is a weather alert feature. I have found no way in this radio to set a weather alert. So that is going to kill the usefulness of this particular radio in that particular application. But that's not why you came here. You came here for the APRS stuff, and I get that. So let's talk about a little bit of that. First of all, there's no shortcut option to go right to the station list or the message list from the front of the radio. So you got to dig through the menu system to go find those each time. Now, it does have a couple of shortcut keys over here, and I'm sure it would be an easy fix in firmware to just add APRS messages and APRS stations to one of these buttons. Oh, and by the way, these buttons do have a short press and a long press function, so we could easily add those and then get instant access right to those two sections of the radio. But just making it a little bit more user-friendly goes a long way when we're talking about APRS radios, because we're already limited just with the space that we've got on an HT. Now, it will beacon APRS. Unfortunately, that's only on a timed beacon. So every 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you get the idea. It is missing the smart beaconing feature. So I would prefer to see it have smart beaconing built in. But again, that's something that they can fix with a firmware update. In case you're not familiar, smart beaconing is just a formula that the faster you travel, the more often it beacons. The slower you travel, the less often it beacons. So I prefer that over a timed beacon about 90% of the time. Now, another downfall to this radio is the fact that we can't mute the packet racket. So if you've got APRS turned on and you're monitoring that frequency, well, you're going to hear every packet that comes in, and that is at the same volume as whatever repeater you're also trying to monitor on the other side of the radio. And that is a real annoyance. Another oddity is the messages on this radio. This thing seems to pick up kind of randomly messages. So I actually saw a message from somebody else show up in my message list. Also, if I send a message using another APRS radio and this one is turned on, it will actually show, let's say I send a message to WeatherBot and I ask it for the weather today. That message shows up on here, not the message that comes back, but the outgoing message I sent from the other radio. So it's got some quirks with APRS messaging that I just haven't quite figured out yet. I don't know if I'm missing a setting somehow or another in the radio, or if it's just one of those quirks of the TED radio. Now, I told you that it would receive APRS objects, and that is true. Where it falls short, though, is it hasn't captured the latitude and longitude from the objects that I've seen so far on the front of this radio, so it can't give you any indication as to how far away that object is or in what direction you would want to travel if you wanted to get to that particular object. So while it does show you a little bit of the information, oh, it does include the comment, so that's a positive. But for the most part, well, objects are almost useless on here. It will decode them, but only partially. I was hoping that we could run APRS Droid or APRS.fi if you're on iOS and solve many of these problems. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get APRS Droid to connect to the radio. In fact, I can't even get my Bluetooth app on my Android device to connect to the radio by itself. Now, yes, you can probably do it with their OD Master or whatever app, but I don't want to have to use their app. I don't want proprietary apps driving the radio. Give us a Bluetooth-capable TNC and let the community figure the rest of it out, because we're pretty good at doing that. So suffice to say, it is not a great APRS radio. If you want to beacon with it, that's okay. If you want to send an occasional message and can put up with those little quirks I was mentioning, well, that's okay too. But this radio has one redeeming quality that makes it worth every penny of $70. Well, at least that's the price as of the time of filming. I just looked it up right before I came out here, and $70, I would buy it just for this one feature alone. It's got a built-in Digipeater. Let me show you guys what that looks like. So let's take, and I'm on APRS Droid, and right now I am running the BTEC UV Pro as my other radio, and I'm on the APRS log screen. So I'm going to go ahead and send a position out, and you will see green is the position that I sent, and it is not repeating that packet. What did I miss? Did I not turn something on, or did this radio not transmit? Let's see if I can figure this out real quick. We'll try that again. Okay, that radio definitely transmitted. Whoop, hold on. Obviously, I messed something up on the other radio. All right, let's try this again. Now, one thing I have found is you do need to have the squelch open on the radio, or it doesn't do very well at hearing incoming packets. The other thing is, a lot of times I can overdrive it if I'm too close, so I move the radio a little bit further away from me just to see if we can demonstrate this on camera. Let's go ahead and try sending out that packet again, and let's see if it'll digipede it this go around. I swear this was working before I came out here in the field to shoot this video. But for whatever reason, I can't get it to work right this second. Hang on, let me see what I've messed up. All right, third time's the charm. Looking right there on the screen, you can see the bright green where I transmitted my last beacon, and 2 up from there, you will see the packet that was digipeated by the TID radio. Turns out I might not have had the radio on the right frequency. So I put it on the right frequency, and it works pretty dang well. I knew it was working before I left anyway. So that fact that it can work as a digipeater, and the fact that it's a 10-watt radio, well, 9 watts, but close enough, that, in my book, makes it worth the $70 if you need a small portable digipeater in your particular setup. Now, one thing about the digipeater that I don't like, and we're going to kind of dive into the nuts and bolts of APRS real quick. Digipeaters should wait a specific amount of time plus a random amount of time before they retransmit the packet. That avoids a lot of collisions in the APRS world. However, this radio only has the set amount of time. It doesn't add that random delay, as best I can tell, before it retransmits that packet. But just the fact that we can get a digipeater in an HT package for $70, well, that makes it pretty dang good, in my opinion, if you're looking for that specific feature. If you found today's information helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.